in their work. So that's a bit of background just to keep people entertained, hopefully interested. So we have to lift the bar, like I said before, from all angles, all sides here. If we can do that, then we can get to a much higher level of performance. And the same applies to any business, really, any industry. We're talking agriculture here generally, but you know, what I'm talking about, in a sense, applies everywhere. You know, and if we don't start concentrating more on the research side, on the planning side, on design side, you know, we're going to have problems in improving our productivity. So unless we can improve our productivity, our efficiency of operations, and our bottom line, we're not going to be progressing very far. We'll be having a lot more webinars like this and talking to people, but we are spinning wheels, you know, in Uganda. And if you look at coffee yields as an example, just an example only, but you know, we don't have to go through all the different crops. But if you look at the coffee yields in Uganda, compared to the global standard, the global average, and the lead countries, we are right at the bottom of the pile next to Rwanda. So that gives you a perspective of our farming. On that level of productivity, we can never overcome any poverty. Never. All right, so we've got choices in what we do, which business we get into to some degree, which industry we work in. And agriculture is no different. It has to be treated as a professional business like any other business. If you're an engineer, you know, or you run an advertising agency, it's very much the same kind of thing. If you're not prepared to do the work, you're not prepared to work smart, like we can say here from this kind of session, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to achieve desired outcomes. Outside, of course, of political type of connections, you know, that's not, you know, a subject here for this webinar. Obviously, there are some people progressing for other reasons, but they're not going to be interested in this webinar. I can tell you. I've been on farms in Noya. Some of those people are not going to be interested in this webinar, no matter what we're talking about. Okay? So that's the reality we have, you know. So we have to look for new people, aspirational people, progressive people. We want to do things differently. If we can find some of those people, we can work a lot better in Uganda. That's it. It is not more complicated than that. So I just want to have a preface to, as people come on to onto the session. Any questions or thoughts?
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. John. I would love to, before anyone with a question would ask, I would love to welcome everyone who are already logged in. I want to welcome James Wanadi, who is also our speaker to tonight's session. Sharon Achola Kato, Xavier Macristo, Mr. Milton, can see also Kevin Kusima, Sister Beatrice Birachel, welcome aboard. Mr. Onegalit Oscar, Doreen, Prosper, and the rest who joined in and I think probably left, maybe because of network issues and other engagements. Like Mr. Jones asked, if anyone with a question, you're welcome to ask. If not, then we welcome Mr. James to take us through the keynote, and then we proceed. Silence means there is no question yet. So, Yeah, Mr.
John or
James.
James, whoever wants to start, I'm okay.
Yeah, okay. I think we may need to proceed. Mr. James Wanadi, floor is yours. Yes, we can see you, but we cannot hear you yet. It would be good to turn on your video, if you don't mind, for the benefit of those who are following on YouTube.
Okay, thank you so much, Francis. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. And in a special way, I want to welcome people once again. Just like our host made mention, I would like to draw our attention to the discussion of today. We are trying to see how precision agriculture or technology is coming into agriculture, or how to digitalize agriculture in the country. I want to give a very quick brief on the situation of technology and how we are using the modern precision agriculture within the Greater Navy and West Nile at large. Honestly speaking, we have no any farm or any specialized farmer who is purely into technology at the moment, or maybe who is purely into precision farming at the moment. Within West Nile, that is known of. But at least we have got the farmers who are able to combine their inputs or information from both the extension officers and also a little few going to search online and a little few getting into the precision farming, but not into a deeper practice. And yet, West Nile as a region, we are coupled with so many limiting factors. Say, for example, we all know very well that currently, as we talk, the weather alone is a challenge. So as the weather is challenging our farming or our production activities, it is therefore become inevitable for a farmer to plan ahead. And some of the planning may actually require that a person need to understand the operation from a more digitalized manner. But also we have got organizations and many people at individual levels who also own farms and who are into some forms of farming. But we have seen situations and scenarios where people have the investment mind, or even they are willing to put up the investment, but sometimes following up the investment become an issue, or even making a proper decision on what time is the right time to plant, on what time is the right time to harvest, on what time is the right time to do the specific activities in the farm has always been challenging. And this is partly because of the knowledge gap, but also in some cases, farming is not being considered as a first priority. It is more of a secondary activity to most of the people who are investing along that line. So they tend to get overtaken by other activities. And now it gets hard that even one may not get time easily to follow up on his farming activities. And yet we are trying to see that if this thing was digitalized, meaning that if there was a digital way how a farmer can be able to monitor the progress of what is happening in his field, right on his bed or right at his workplace somewhere, I think some of the challenges could have been minimized, or the losses in car could be reduced in one way or the other. Let me give an example. I know that most of us every evening, at least we have got access to go to the social media pages. What if you were able to use that same time for being on the social media to also verify the performance of your field, the performance of your coffee garden, the performance of your potato garden, or the performance of your onion field somewhere in a digital way? I think that will save a lot. But also, I have to admit that the reason why technology is not being taken up seriously, especially the digitalization, is also accessibility has also been an issue, and is even now still an issue in our area here. You know very well that even network coverage in West Nile alone is very poor. We have a lot of areas that even you cannot do things as long as it involves internet connection, because the connectivity is extremely poor. Like for example, if you went to Erusi, you went to Atego, It is hard even to make phone calls. It is hard even to get into internet service. The same applies if you went to places like Kuchwin, some part of Nyaravur, some part of maybe sub-county. So connectivity alone is a challenge. I think maybe that is also one area that has been limiting people from adopting the technology. But also, there is no deliberate move that has been put in place, or there is no demonstration of how the digitalization is working within here that can become maybe a motivating factor that will push our farmers to adopting that. But also, when I also talk on behalf of the extensionist, and maybe for your information, I also happen to be the chairperson of all the extension professionals within the Greater Nebi. That is Nebi Zumban Papach. We are nearly 200 professionals around that the field. But I will also admit that very, very few of us understand and actually know what digitalizing agriculture means, or what digitalizing farming mean. Very few. So even if these are the change agents, and the change agents do not have the knowledge resource, then you could see that generally they will not be able to influence the farmers now to make any changes, because they are the one whom the farmers believe in, and we are the one whom the farmers entrust, and we are the one who takes the message of whatever technologies to the community. So the knowledge aspect is also still lacking. And I really believe that as part of this training, we will be able to embrace this learning to a point that I believe some of the people here will be able to test it on their fields. We get to understand how it works, and then subsequently roll it over when we realize that it is working and showing result. But I personally have interacted with Mr. John on many occasions, and he knows that we are cooking up something, both in terms of training, but also trying to bring in our companies, Agri-Exim, together to see how best we can be able to reach our farmers digitally. But also amidst all this, digital farming is the only way we can be able to save costs of our investment, especially the extension cost, and even the cost of monitoring and other things can best be managed through digital farming. At the moment, I want to stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bwana James. That has been elaborate, and thank you for your presentation. We are getting back to Mr. John, because today is your day. We want to learn more of precision agriculture, using tech in our field, and we want to tap from your wealth of knowledge. So yeah, we welcome you to the session. Talk to us. You're welcome, sir.
Okay, all right. We have to try to make it not so long, huh? So I think people here don't know me too well, even though I've worked up near Western Isle. I've been here now in Uganda since 2018. My name is John Goslino, and I've just created with colleagues a new company called Performance Farming Africa Limited. So with this new entity, we are looking to focus on precision agriculture and drone use in farming across the whole spectrum of farming, and have a real strong service model that we can put together across the season from the start to the finish. I've learned a lot since we started 2018 with some initial projects. I soon realized that a lot of the farmers that we have here, are not dedicated professional farmers at all. They're not vocational at all. So therefore, you know that as James was saying, and this applies also to the extension officers, because most of them are not expert. They're just support agents to some degree, but they're not, even the government ones, they're not organized to really provide the kind of service that serious farmers need. So I realized that because some of the farms I visited in 2018, the farming there was not at the level that I experienced in Australia, where I come from, when I was a kid, when I was a boy. They were not at that level. So it was some kind of farming, yes, I understand. It's farming for subsistence, for living to some degree. But clearly, if we have too many of that kind of farming here, we're not going to achieve more than subsistence, a survival kind of thing. So that also inspired me to get on this course of action, you might say, and see what we can do and see whether we can take a more of a pro-development approach here, where we could look at what's possible to do on farm, utilizing new technologies, and what you need to do off the farm to support the on-farm activities and vice versa. So it's complicated. A system-based approach is really needed here. And I want to make this kind of stress that because, in my experience here in these 5-6 years, is that we are very much still on the livelihoods side of things. We're just looking to fix a tractor, the wheels of a tractor. That's our approach here. It's bits and pieces kind of approach to keep ourselves going. Somehow we keep going, but it's not a holistic strategic approach to farming. And in some cases, I soon realized people didn't even know how much land they were actually farming. So if we look at the example of James, I soon realized that even some of those farmers, they don't know how large those fields are. They don't know. They don't know the size of the farm field, nor the areas for expansion. They're not known. So you soon realize that farming here is like trading. It's like trading goods. You go there and buy whatever they got. You're not actually directly involved in the farming process. Maybe you provide seeds at the beginning. Then you wait at the end for the harvest. You assess that and see what you're going to pay people. So that's how I see a lot of the buyers, aggregators, producer organizations. That's it. The extension services are limited, and commercially it's not easy to justify servicing lots and lots of smallholder farmers. So we need a different approach. That's what I'm saying. If we want to get to where the president is talking about in terms of commercial farming, we need to be serious in the work that we do. How we think, how we work, it becomes important. So I can't stress that enough. If that's the only thing that you pick up on this webinar, that's okay. Because that's what we need to start thinking about. How can we work more effectively, more efficiently, and make farming more of a business? We need to put those elements together. Precision agriculture, digitalization can help us to get there. But as James was actually saying, the adoption rate is very, very low in Uganda, very low. So a lot of the adoption is only linked to funded donor programming. But outside of that, there's very little. And if you look into some of that funded programming, there's not much actual use of the tools that he's talking about. So, of course, we need to be serious what we're doing. That's also a very key point, because precision agriculture, for example, as an approach, as a framework for farming, offers a lot of potential. And one of our key challenges is input costs and effectiveness of use. It also addresses that kind of issues. And as James was talking about, it also enables us to track what is happening on our farm throughout the whole season, even if we're not there. Because if we have to be there everywhere, that's going to obviously reduce the bottom line of our farming. We may not be making any profits, we're making actually losses. And I learned about this when I was moving around the countryside, surveying land and farms with a colleague who reminded me that most of the vehicles that you see here coming the opposite way from Kampala outside are people going to visit their farms to see what is happening there. Now, it doesn't matter what those people are going to see on those farms, what they're going to do with their brother or sister or whatever. The problem is you're not working efficiently. Labor is not being well utilized. Equipment is not being well utilized. We're paying too much for input use oftentimes, where we are even putting inputs in. So there's, you need to look at how you can solve a number of problems with one strategy, if I can put it also more simply along those kind of lines. A lot of the problems that we face could be resolved with a different approach. We need to start to see how we could adopt a different approach. And we can do that step by step. So with any project, you can do one field at a time. You can learn from that, you can optimize, and then you expand that through your operation or through your group of farmers. So it's really important that we concentrate on that. And it's a lot of I say is the people aspects here. The leadership, the governance is part of that. Without leadership, without proper management, of course we're going to struggle in all facets, not just in agriculture, all facets. And in my experience here, you see that there's a lot of this weakness in systems, weakness in leadership. Then there's not much that you can do, even with technology. So that's where we've got to make more of a commitment. And I guess there's not many. An Australian colleague of mine who's worked here in Uganda in farming as a consultant, he told me that the 80-20 rule applies in Uganda. That means that 80% of the farmers we have here, like I was saying before, 80% of the farmers we have here are not professional vocational farmers. And in due course, we've got to have a strategy for that 80%. In theory, we've got to have a strategy for the 80%. We cannot support 80% of people who are not very productive in any situation, any sector, any industry, any company. You cannot justify that. And now some of our costs are higher than what it costs to produce things in other countries. So it's going to be a problem. So precision agriculture is a way forward. If we can look at how we can adopt that in an effective way at scale with a lot of aggregated benefits, we can then start to make headway, become more competitive internally and also externally. And we're part of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, etc. So we've got an opportunity there to actually have an impact on that stage. But we've got to be better at what we do across all phases of the work. So we're talking about value chains, but that's often misleading. That doesn't address the farming properly. Yes, there are people that are looking to automate aspects of the value chain, and create value-added products and proper certifications and whatever. But you've got to be strong at the farming side. If you're not strong at the farming side, you're going to have problems on the other side, which has already been the case with us, with maize in Kenya, for example. It's been a problem. Of course it is. So we need to look at alternative strategies. And the digital tools are good, but they need to be applied as part of an approach to farming, approach to management, incorporating particular tools that we're going to use. And data is an issue, but it's not the biggest issue. I know we have data gaps around the country, and sure, lots of pockets in West now, like there are in Amuru, for example. I know that. But if we can move to more remote management of these farms, of these fields, we don't have to worry so much. We can see what is happening on those fields. We can see what is needed where. We can advise people on the ground, whether it's a laborer with your staff, whether it's the farmer or landowner, him or herself. You can advise directly because you have one person, you have one office that's overseeing all the fields, all the farms. You can assess that. You can produce reports and send it to each of the farmers. That's a much better approach than relying, like we have been doing with this livelihood program, on trying to turn every landowner into a qualified farmer. It's not going to happen. It hasn't happened. I can tell you it hasn't happened. So, and it's not going to happen in our lifetime. So therefore, you need a different approach, you need different thinking. We need to see how we can move to, say, remote management, even more corporate managed farming. And utilizing precision agriculture as a framework and digital tools will help us to get there. So that's where I'm coming from, just to be clear on that, on the previous preface as well. That's what we need to start thinking about. So to be on this forum, you've got to have that serious mindset, not the usual mindset we have here. I did the same talk that I'm doing now, 2019, in Gulu, in the Palladium UK Aid funded event for farmers over 3 days. And what's happened since then? I don't see the transformative kind of projects and developments from that point. A lot of people come along to these things. They come along, but then they don't do anything afterwards. Then they're still waiting on someone else to do things for them. Then they get onto that bandwagon. But we've got to put that aside. We've got to think, what can we do with our resources? What can we do as a private sector? Because in most countries, it's private sector led. So we've got to think, not thinking about the next donor program in 3 years and getting on that bandwagon. Just thinking about now. What can we do now within our group? How can we mobilize ourselves to take a different approach, utilizing these tools? Having a pitch in effect, we can sell to investors, bankers, insurers. That's what we've got to get to, I think. If we can get more groups working along these kind of lines, we're going to be more effective in a shorter period of time. So that's maybe a long-winded background. I'm happy to pause anytime. But this is where we need to have more conversation, and it's the motivation of people to overcome even some of the obstacles we have, as James was talking about. Often we have leaders here who don't understand. Okay. We have the head of the leader of the Ministry of Agriculture. He's not a farmer. So he has to rely on other people to advise him. Okay? As an example, isn't it? Now we have, as you mentioned, data issues, yes, and there's a number of other obstacles. We don't have to go through all of them now. But we've got to look at, even on the infrastructure, the enabling infrastructure, what can we do? What can we influence that's going to help us to get from where we are now, to where we want to be or need to be. Some changes have to be made. What changes can we affect? And that's where I think it's very important for each member of this forum to, and I hope it's a forum that ongoing, that has to address that as best that they can. So this is just a start of that, and I'll share a guide document, and we can just scan through it a bit, and then I'll distribute it to everybody here on this mailing list anyway, so then we can use that as a template in a way to support what we're talking about. But of course, there's lots of other things that need to be implemented as well as part of that. And that's the challenge, is how we can get people together around a basic farming framework and set of tools, and moving in the same direction, or the right direction, we would say. That's it, so that's what it's lacking now. So what we need to do as also, as James was indicating too, as an aside here, is that we've got all these extension officers. Of course, we don't have anywhere near enough extension officers given the number of farmers we have, We have a very low ratio. But even so, we need to start moving that extension, that advisory and support to in a more central way for more farmers. We're not going to pay more people to be running around. That's another problem that we have, because we've been relying on donor-funded programs who are funding people to run around everywhere. But the commercial world is not like that. So if we are farming in the commercial space, we need to find a way in which we can handle that. Commercially, that's not going to work. We can't afford. There's no company here that can afford. Even UBL, no breweries, whatever, they can't afford to do that. So we got to find alternative approaches. Okay, so that's what we are talking about now, is looking at alternative ways to move from where we are now to where we need to be. And change is scary, I understand. Change is a bit scary for some people, but I think with a clear framework, a set of tools, methodology, we can all get there. Even if the person is not very experienced in farming, they can get there. And every asset, every tree on that farm, every farmer can bring something to the table. Not everybody's a farmer, like I was saying before. No, not everybody's a farmer here. But each person has got something to bring into the equation here. Some effectively are landowners. Some are laborers. Some could be shareholders in a new company that we create out of this. That's okay. People can find the roles they want to play. For us, if you've got a strong framework, you can accommodate changes within and reallocation of assets and resources. That's a more system-based approach to farming. And that's what we need to concentrate more, because we've got all these smallholder farmers, Even in coffee, there's 1.7, 1.8 million households relying heavily on coffee. Now, most of those households, I can tell you, they're not earning very much from that coffee. Not much at all. So if we were to look at that impartially, we would be reluctant to invest, we'd be reluctant to encourage them to continue on as coffee farmers, the way that they're doing things. That's the reality. So you can imagine how many households, how many people are affected. But if you look at the numbers, and farming is about numbers, it's a business like any other business, then we have to understand that. The social aspect, I understand, but it's mainly a business that has to work for the household. Has to also work for youth and women, of course. We're not discounting them. But at the incomes that we are generating in coffee for those 1.7, 1.8 million households, you cannot do very much. You cannot do very much at all. And you can't reinvest back in the farming. But even if you had ideas or you advise what to actually do to improve your yield and efficiencies, you cannot invest in that. You're relying on subsidies, someone to give you money to do it. So that's where, that's the reality of where we are, and the new regulations from the European Union, of course, scared lots of people here. But the reality is, the underlying thing is that irrespective of what the regulations are imposing on us, the farming is not profitable. The farming is not profitable. So we've got choices there. Yes, we have to make some choices. But as a group, we can do a lot more. As individuals, we go out to every smallholder farmer and assess them. Of course, we may come to some conclusions. So we've got to start thinking beyond that and thinking, okay, how can these farmers come on board to our platform? How can they work in a more systemized way? If they can do that, there's a chance for that household to improve its results. there's encouragement there for youth to be involved in agriculture. Because at the moment, there's not much encouragement in any area that I've seen. You look at the type of people that are running these farms, they're not the type of people that you would normally expect or associate with. We're going to achieve the desired results, not many. So that's where it's a harsh reality, I understand, but we've got to start at that harsh reality. I don't mind talking about that. No point in us trying to paint things rosy, you know, like this is a donor kind of program that's going to change the world. It's not. But if we start to think of how we can adopt a different approach, I think we give ourselves a much better chance of success. So that's my leading in spiel. It might say very long. I apologize for that. But I can now move into a document, a little guidebook that we can address, if you don't mind. I can share a screen, I think. Let me see. Everybody see the screen here?
See it loading?
Sorry.
It's
Sorry, maybe I was a bit too long there, but I know it's
Yeah,
funny. That's what I was saying. So apologies for being a bit long-winded there, but I hope I've sparked people a little bit more, you know, beyond just looking at the technology. You know, there's a human elements here that we need to look at. Can everybody see the screen there? We'll try to.
Yes.
Yes, it's visible.
Is visible? Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to adjust it a little bit. Yeah, so there's lots of resources on precision agriculture because the field itself started in the 1960s. It's not, you know, necessarily new, you know, as you'd like to actually see it. So precision agriculture as a discipline, you might say, started many years ago and has gradually being adopted, particularly in the developed world, but also increasingly in the developing world, particularly countries like India, where they're trying to organize programs even for smallholder-based farming systems. So it's an area, it's like any a discipline within anything, you should be looking at learning within your group and seeing what elements of it maybe you can bring on board in your own farming or how you can change your own system to utilize that. But there's two main premises of precision agriculture. The precision farming is another term. Of course, we can use other terms like smart farming, data-driven farming, whatever they are related aspects. But there's two main things you've got to think about here as we move into this area. One is that precision agriculture is about understanding better what you have, your terrain, your soil, the vegetative quality, etc. And then determining from that, through processing and analysis, determining what you should be doing, where and how. Okay? What you should be doing, where and how, and optimizing your efforts. So on the input side, on the productivity side, you're looking at tailoring all your efforts as a farmer to maximize your end product. Okay? But that's utilizing data from the beginning, from the baselining of your project. Yeah, it's a new farm, or even if it's you're putting some rotation crops into that field or whatever. It's looking at how you can start from the pre-planting up to the harvesting stage, when you're harvesting stage. How you understand what is happening where and what you're going to do about it, and then tracking the result of your interventions. So it's about understanding, guiding what happens through the whole process. Okay? So that means we have to have some sense of understanding what is happening, mainly through visual maps, color-coded maps. The more we can work on that from the terrain side, you can see the shape of the land, issues with the land. From the soil side, we can look at the type of soil, the depth of the soil, the texture. Then you can look at the health of the existing vegetation on there, and where the water and nutrient balances are residing within that. You can incorporate then, of course, historic information, weather information, air information, and you incorporate that, process all that, and then you can develop from there maps which can tell you what you have there. And then if it's interpreted well, which is an issue, if it's interpreted well, you got advisory. Within a short period of time, you got advisory what you need to actually do. So of course you don't need to be very expert farmer there. No, you don't have to be, have to know everything. So that's an area where, of course, that opens up the door for investment in farming, because you don't need to be expert in every aspect of it. But you do need to be familiar or be advised by your agronomist or other how your farm is looking, how, and why, and then be able to then organize appropriate action. So that's in the main gist of it. The second main point that I'm trying to make here is also that precision agriculture is also about doing more with less. So when we're looking at how we're farming now and the impacts on the environment, and our adaptation to climate change and related aspects, it's also about how we can produce more with fewer inputs and fewer negative impacts on the environment. So that's what also it's an important, a secondary thing to consider. How can we do more with less? Well, this is an approach which can help you. And you'll see that in new programs that you will see come into Uganda, for example. Donor programming will have this element of monitoring the impacts of the farming on the environment and have more conditions for any farming and support. Now, by utilizing precision agriculture and the use of drones, for example, you have less impact on the environment. You're using less carbon. So this is how things are beginning to change. And of course, the buyers, regulators that we may be exporting to or trading with may have more terms on what we do and how we do it. Not just looking at buying the end product, but having more input into the process of work to get there. So we've got to be more conscious ourselves in Uganda that our processes of work need to also align with what the buyer or the customer is expecting or demanding. And then precision agriculture gives you opportunity then to provide more information, be more knowledgeable about the process. So this is also very important for all of us, is to do that. So that's where, if we keep these ideas in our mind, we're already making a good start, because you see a lot of people here, a lot of farming operations here don't have that in their mind so much. It's not a principle. It's not a principle that are shared. Only a small number of farmers understand this and are working along appropriate lines as they can. Majority are not. So therefore, you see there's an opportunity there, of course. Opportunity for ourselves, opportunity also to assist people on the outside that we want to work with. So this is where I think, we've got to address this much more seriously than comparing this to which tractor do I buy? The red one or the blue one? Oftentimes, that's what farming here is about. Not more complicated than that. Which tractor is cheaper, that one or that one? There's no strong underlying strategy of the farming. Okay, so this is where I'm trying to, in a sense, when talking about strategy or frameworks, it's very different to comparing product A and product B. That's a different equation altogether. We've got to get out of that. That goes back to the kind of agronomy that we see in Uganda, as I mentioned in the preface of this. A lot of that, those guys don't know much more than where to dig holes. They may know how deep you should be digging the holes. They got their hole. They can dig also. That's it. There's not much more than some of these guys are actually offering. So for the farmer, I feel also not good because the quality of service to farming is not the best. We can help to improve that with a precision agriculture approach, period. And we can bring agronomists, interested ones, on board with us and make sure there's tracking of every field and an agronomist that's skilled and able to advise. Some human expert is still going to be needed. We're not going to replace everything with artificial intelligence or machine learning in the near future, in the very near future. It can be 90% accurate. Okay, so we can use the software to be 90% accurate, even more perhaps. We're still going to need some human experts for the interpretation into actionable advice. So this is where it's important to bring forces together, understand that. But anyway, let's go on to just have a quick squeeze through here if you can. Huh? If you can follow me, it can even work. Oops, sorry. Okay, so I'm not going too far here, I don't think. Hang on a minute. Apologies here, guys. Sorry for the. I've actually used this document like that before. Just hang on a minute. Sorry, I'm having a little issue with that document. It seemed to be working before. Can you take over Francisco for a minute and then I'll come back to that document? Possible? I'll just change that, I think.
Okay.
Is that okay? Sorry. It seems to be not going smoothly there. Okay, sorry. Are you apologies, I was on the wrong version of the same thing. Okay. So as I was saying, I've said some of these things already. So I've got a guidebook that I think is going to help interested people on this forum that goes through the key steps, as you can see there on the screen. So it takes you through what precision farming is, what are the key steps, for precision farming or agriculture, the benefits which you often need to use to convey to people, you need to convey to other stakeholders, maybe the person head of your cooperative or whatever. You need to make some arguments why you're suggesting or adopting an approach. Then we can look at tools we need for precision farming. as also a little bit James indicated earlier. Now, more importantly, of course, we can look at how we can get a return now on this precision agriculture approach. So we can start putting some equation together, simple one, which can help us to determine, how a successful precision agriculture can be for us. And then we've also got here a worksheet that farmers can use. And I might jump even because of the time factors here, 3:06. We can jump also towards the end there, so you can see for yourself what's available, and how things make sense. So I can skip some of this stuff, going through all of it, because you can read it yourself. As we mentioned, farming has changed a lot. We're looking to come up with a different framework for farming, and there's a number of arguments here. But here we're looking at how do you assume that you have understanding of this and the objectives that you want to achieve, starting to get into planning mode. A lot of the farming that I saw, like in Noya, Muro, many other places, it wasn't properly planned farming. They didn't have a document that you could utilize. They didn't even have a spraying schedule that you could use. So what we're trying to do is starting also to move into planning-based farming. So we start off with the goals of farming. Then you can talk about the kind of data and how often you need to collect that data. I won't go through everything. What are you going to be monitoring on your farm based on your experience, your past results, what you want to do? There are a lot of things now we can start to monitor, in different ways, in the ground, from the air, remote sensing, using a satellite, using drones, a lot of things that we can begin to understand what's happening on your farm, on your fields. This just gives you a good initial listing. Of course, we also have rainfall, NDVI means vegetative health in a short time. Crop stress, water stress, you can understand. A lot of these things can be understood remotely, so we can start to work out what's more important for us to understand on our farm. How can we best do that? And then utilize that information and take some action. Okay, organizing the data is also a key part of the process. Here we're talking about planning process here. How do we organize this data? Well, that's also very important. And of course, we have the action. How do we move from understanding, interpreting that into action, and then taking the desired action? So this is where, if you have a planned approach, you can work through all these steps. That's what I'm suggesting here. Now, this goes back into evolution. We don't necessarily have to go through that right here. Without data support, very important point here, looking at a field here, looking at see what we can understand, what's happening in this field. And you see that fields are not uniform in most cases. There's different elements, and different performance across fields for different reasons. So we try to have a better understanding of that and responding accordingly. So a lot of things a lot of our assessment here comes from our visual inspection, or just guesswork if it's a larger case. We're relying on people moving around, sometimes collecting some images which they may share on WhatsApp groups or whatever, but you very rarely see a full image of that field. You only see one or two trees. You don't see the full picture. Most of the farming here is like that. People don't have time or expertise, usually both, to address each part of their field, whether it's maize, whether it's avocado, whatever. They don't have scope. So here, this example here comes from the Netherlands, but the principles here apply everywhere. Okay, it's just a document which you can apply in any country, and you're looking here 80%. See the figure there in the middle of the screen there? Oops. Sorry. Sorry about that. I think that's it jumped somewhere there. Apologies. Oops. I think we've gone the wrong direction there. Sorry. Apologies, everybody. Apologies. We just jumped to a different document there. That was an accidental click that I did there, but let's go back. Apologies there. Okay, sorry. I clicked on the link, it jumped. So that's issue here on the browser. So bear with me there. Apologies once again. You see here, Dutch growers are on average 80% of their maximum potential yield. This is a very important point. So you see in some markets, the potential yield and the actual yield could be relatively close. So the room for improvement is reduced. Now, we could say in Uganda, not just using the example of coffee like I was saying before, we are most likely under 50%, maybe well under 50% in most cases across most crop lines. Okay? We are less than 50% of the maximum potential yield. So what we've got to try to do here, as well as on the input efficiency side and other aspects, we've got to look at how we can move from, say, 50%, any figure, to 80% like they would be in Netherlands, as per that example. It's a big difference, of course. So we've got to look at how we can utilize precision agriculture, digitalization, to try to get somewhere near there. If we can do that, we improve our prospects as farmers and as households. And we're going through all of that, but we're looking at moving from people-based systems, drawing at conclusions, to more data-driven systems, more interactive systems that are going to provide us with more accurate information about the status of our fields, and even start to move us to what we would say is proactive management, not reactive management, which we are commonly doing here, where we have a problem, big problem, and we have to run to fix it. We have to start thinking about how can we understand what is happening and, and potentially what the implications of that are and what actions we can take, if any, to address that. Understand me? So this is where we need to start moving a little bit differently. Now, I said I won't go through all of that. What we need to move is to this kind of model where you've got personalized advice on the crop. So you're bringing in more information sources and being more accurate and specific in your analysis of what is happening, why it's happening, and what you can do about it. Fine-grained and frequent data collection from multiple sources, linked in the one platform, which is what we're trying to do here in Uganda. Let's skip through that. Okay, benefits of precision farming, all right? So again, I won't go through detail at every point here, but the key areas here, economic benefits. Let's look at that, economic benefits, environmental benefits, I touched on a bit earlier. Traceability, of course, is very important here, and it's, not just in areas like coffee, like example, but we also need to understand, can we go back in time? Can we understand what is happening here over time? Can we be more accountable in our farming? It's a related concept. So we've got to try to be able to demonstrate and be able to utilize that information in our planning. Regulation is also important, particularly in terms of organic and biodynamic farming, this kind of thing. Precision agriculture can help to support that. Can support meeting regulator requirements and any other information requirements on the farm. Communication across the value chain, also important. We have to look at all the different stakeholders that we have. And how can we help and support each of those, utilizing our farming framework? So these are the sort of things we can discuss, even with farming groups, cooperatives. Yeah, we can address each of these issues, see what's more important for the farmer or for that particular group, and then we'll work around that. What kind of tools do we need for precision agriculture? I know that this session is about technology, but there's various technologies. I understand that. We don't have to complicate things too much. We're just trying to look at what do we have, what can we implement that can work well for us. And these are sensors that can go into the ground, for example, to collect the soil and air information on a per acre or per hectare basis. The physical, the devices linked to the internet, linked to, say, what we call a cloud-based server. So these sort of things can be operating all the time. A data platform which collects this kind of data from a satellite image, and the outputs from a satellite or from a drone. You also have information on the soil and the air from your sensor on the ground, plus other information. You also have scouting apps, which probably what James is going to be talking about a little bit as well. It's about having an ability. It doesn't always have to be on the ground on every field, but you have an ability to collect certain data, particularly being guided by the agronomist remote farming system as to where there could be issues. So you see the reports. The reports can give you an idea where you have to look, and that's where your field person can then visit the field, collect some images of the plants in that area, make some notes, upload that to the same platform that's processing that data. Okay, so instead of doing random checks, we can guide the people on the ground that we have. Of course, if they have a smartphone like here in the image, it's going to be better. So we won't go through all of that. So I wanted to squeeze through a little bit here. Now, one interesting thing, of course, for all our farmers here, a lot of people doing farming on the side, I understand, some people are speculating in farming. Look, what we need to do is start to get to these kind of calculations. Huh? So I just use an example, and we need to tailor these things for our needs. And they can vary by group, they can vary by crop. So, we've got to look at the numbers of farming. Yeah? We've got to look at what we anticipate producing in terms of revenue. Then we've got to look at the variable, here it's referred to as flexible cost of producing that. Oftentimes here, we don't get the variable cost. The cost of the farming is not properly documented. Okay, so then you have some issues in actually advising those kind of farmers. That's important now. With precision agriculture, we can start to be more accurate in understanding what the costs of production are. Then we can start looking at, okay, compared to the previous season, what's been the impact of our work on yields, on inputs? What has the data platform and the hardware cost us, say amortized or whatever in the case of the hardware? What's the net return to us as farmers? Okay, so this is a simple way of coming to terms with the value of precision agriculture. We need different approach to farming. And of course, all those areas can be broken down into more details. But if we can get a discipline of doing this kind of thing, and for example, in variable costs, In some cases, when you look at irrigation, and if you're looking at proper planning of irrigation where it makes sense, you've got to also have equations for this. In many cases, we don't have, and we're not costing water properly. The capital and the variable cost should be included in your calculations. Otherwise, you're not assessing things accurately. You're defeating some of the purpose of being precision agriculture, or any agriculture for that matter. Okay, so I put this up there because it's a very important point. Let's skip now. There's obviously there's obviously a promises of precision agriculture, but of course, anything you do, you have to look at how you can get a return within 1 season or 2 seasons or 3 seasons. What changes you have to make. So this is, again, with a data-driven approach, it makes it a lot easier to be able to answer these kind of questions. And if you're utilizing a data platform, utilizing hardware, you've got a smartphone that you've bought that's going to do some of the crop scouting, you can start to incorporate that in your costings and be more accurate, at the end of the season. Okay, skipping now here to like a worksheet. And this is, we are here now in Uganda. We are here in lots of cases. We are at the planting or near planting phase, In the case of James, some of his projects, they may start planting in March, but March is coming up. So it's a question now, what do we need to actually do in the meantime, between now and then? Okay, so without going into a lot here, let's look at a worksheet that we can utilize. A worksheet, so something, has to be fairly simple, practical, then we can start to apply in February, at the beginning of the season, you might say, because you have a bit of holidays or whatever, but then you're into the planning mode. That's where we are now. So here, as you can see on this worksheet, you've got analysis. Okay, so you start to analyze what happened in the previous season, that you grew the same crop and this kind of thing. You try to understand the timings of that. You put that down. The second point there is evaluation of the past season, also evaluation of your field, your farm compared to that of others where you've got some other comparable information. Then you need to come up with some rationale, some hypotheses that we say here in terms of how you can improve your performance compared to what you did in the past season, or what your neighbor did, or what is a benchmark in this area. So you start to look at that. So you create ideas based on that. Third point is based on that, you can derive in terms of your areas that you need to concentrate on and do better in. Okay, so there may not be everything there, but of course, with the technology we have now, there's a lot of things that can be tracked, automated. Even, of course, water use can be monitored much more accurately now if you have sensor-based systems. We don't have that in Uganda, so we know that it's a bit harder. Sorry,
Mr. John.
Yeah.
We request that you should wind up because we are 30 minutes to the top of the hour that we should be concluding, and perhaps we have some of these participants that may need to also give their reaction, ask questions.
It's okay. So this is the
You-
last page, so you can see here.
Okay.
So in terms of goals for the upcoming season, what are you going to measure, and try to be as specific as you can there as per the example. And then you start to assess each particular area, what you're going to be doing, and the data sources you're going to be utilizing. So you start to put together this worksheet. Can work for most farms, and it helps to build knowledge season on season and become more accurate in what you're actually doing. That's it. I haven't gone through everything there. I've just said that's a simple overview that we can get to. So we can jump into questions now if we like. That's the core of the presentation per se. Without going into any technology, any details, just so people understand there's a process here, and we can put together practical worksheets that people can utilize.
Thanks a lot for the elaborate presentation. I hope people were following keenly. Personally, I learned a lot. Before I could go in further, I would like to introduce to you Doreen. Doreen Onyero was supposed to be our moderator, but she had a technical network issue.
Yep.
Doreen, may you unmute and wave to us, greet us.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
The way you're breaking, we cannot hear you well.
Sorry, Doreen. Hopefully she can speak a bit more clearly, or a data connection can be smoother. How's the water? I'd like to hear from Doreen.
Doreen, so you're really breaking badly. Sorry. Okay, for the interest of time, allow me take over and proceed with my presentation. Of course, I was supposed to come in and present on the digital solution, some of the digital solutions in the Greek sector. And my part is talking about access to digital platforms for farmers. And in that, we are looking at mobile applications for market information and pricing, online platforms for agricultural training and baby extension, improving access to financial services through the digital channels. For the interest of time, I might not now touch on all the areas, but we might now move in a kangaroo style, but at least to share all that, and then we can proceed from there. I hope everyone is we are able to see my screen.
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. My name is Frank Onoba, or Francisco Onoba. I am the TOT all trainers of trainee working for Yo Uganda and implementing a project called Yo Pay a Greek. It's just and I am running across West Nile, and this is my region where I am based, and I am working. And we're working with farmers and farmers organizations. Basically, that's what we are doing in West Nile. The UPay Agric, in it we have what we call a MasterCard Farmers Network, which is a digital tool, or it is a digital ecosystem for agricultural value chain to improve the livelihood of smallholder farmers within Uganda and across the globe. Of course, like Mr. John and earlier on, Mr. Wanadi was telling us the challenges we are facing in the agricultural value chain in West Nile, Greater Nebi, and also in Uganda. Of course, there are vast challenges. And MasterCard Foundation, through Your Uganda, they did their research and realized one other way we can solve some of the challenges we are facing in the agriculture sector and be through digitalizing the sector. And of course, why they picked interest in the agriculture value chain is that the market is large and it is continually growing and increasingly mobile equipped, and and the market alone is composed of 6.4 of the world's economic production, and totaling to over 5 trillion US dollars, and that is the annual turnover globally in agriculture, and it's employing majority of people, and of course even in Uganda majority are employed in agriculture. So and the value chain are really highly complex, and of course here in Greater Nebi, in West Nile, and most parts of Uganda, it's more of manual work, and people are dependent on cash based in terms of transaction, which in most cases brings a lot of diminishing inefficiency, fraud, and sometimes waste, losses to a smallholder farmer. And yet, this agriculture plays a critical role in economic and societal health. And according to the International Development Organization, governments and the private sector have taken a renewed interest in investing in this sector hugely, from the supply chain to to address population growth, rising food insecurity, to create a sustainable and transparent ecosystem. And if we look at this, 25% of GDP contribution in developing countries comes from agriculture. This same sector is estimated highly in all the aspects. Over 9.8 billion population globally depend on food production and from agriculture. Almost 70% are smallholder farmers and the ones doing the production. And this system that we are trying to roll out to farmers, of course, it has a number of stakeholders in it. We have the farmer producer organizations, what we call the FPOs, that can be the cooperative, can be farmers association, can be a smallholder groups of farmers, even households who are doing great work. And this particular group, majorly their challenges are two. They face poor record keeping, which is a very big challenge in their FPOs, and then also access to buyers, because James is here, he will tell us they have the money to buy, but they can't come for a small quantity. That means for these smallholder farmers, for them to access a market from, let's say, from agri-eggs, they need to, to bulk, which from the challenge I earlier on pointed out, it is hard for these people because of the fraud, the losses they were making through some of these arrangements. to trust. So we are coming in to bridge this gap by bringing in the trust aspect of it in the sector. And then through this platform, there is also the buyers, the agri-buyers. Of course, for them, the challenge is lack of visibility and certification of goods. Most of them are not known to the smallholder farmers. And then another challenge is cost of catch. Most of these agri-buyers seek to pay their supply chain participants more efficient and often, which is again risky and it is costly. We also have our financial institutions onto the platform that can be banks, can be SACCOs, can be any other microcredit lenders. And that challenge in most cases is informal transaction history. Most of these, the financial institutions lack the data that enables them to determine the credit worth of an FPO and farmer or crop advance and input loans, as well as the data that enable them to create relevant banking product. And then they also have challenges with the limited channels. They struggle to reach and serve rural communities, which is often prohibitively expensive, making the delivery of their financial products unprofitable. We also have government at play, but usually the challenge is lack of transparency in subsidies of program to support smallholder farmer, but struggle to measure usage and effectiveness. And then we have, there are other challenges, lack of data. Government lacks sometimes data to assess smallholder farmers' needs and to inform agriculture policy. And then we also have another player, which is international development organization. Most of them lack transparency, the data to measure and evaluate the usage of grants, grant funds, and the impact of their programs. So for that matter, this sector that we say presents a major opportunity to serve the marginalized individual and their communities. We can say 30% of crop cash value is lost through value chain inefficiencies, representing almost a 4 billion annual post-harvest income loss across Africa. And we can calculate based on our productivity. And then 2 billion US dollars direct revenue opportunity for digital financing services providers to digitize the agriculture payment is also lost in between. And then our major focus is to support smallholder farmers who are at the heart of the agriculture value chain, so that they don't lose focus, they don't lose the trust, they don't and lose their money. Meanwhile, they also play their role well. So like I mentioned earlier, we have seen most of these challenges the smallholder farmer face is market access and fair pricing. Most cases, they don't know how much the international pricing looks like, and they can't tell. So our coming in digitalizing the agriculture value chain is to make sure there is transparency and timely information on both market access and fair prices. And then we also realize they also have a challenge with timely crop payments, and our coming in is to address that gap so that they don't have to wait for days or weeks for their payment to get effective. We are also looking at availability of credit. Of course, having the platform will address the challenges we pointed out that financial institutions face. So through the platform, there will be trust and traceability of all these farmers, and thus will enable them to access the service. We're also looking at ability to source quality inputs. Of course, from the platform, we have trusted and certified input dealers. So in case a farmer is in need of an input, they have that challenge is addressed there, and then based on prevailing market price, and we ensure that this input is delivered to that smallholder farmer. And then also access to tailor expert and advisory services. Of course, we had that is a challenge that most farmers are facing, and of course, some of them requires technological experts and technology in to be get involved. For example, the weather tracking weather patterns, conducting good business practices, and many other maybe farming practices. This information can come in handy through the system, and that is what the system can do in helping a smallholder farmer. Through this MasterCard Farmers Network, we bring agri-sector stakeholders together, like I said, into one marketplace and amplifying the collective positive impact on farming communities. In addition, we also assist smallholders farmers with access to financial services to increase the quality and quantity of their harvest, as well as advisory services related to their specific farming needs and aspirations. In digitalizing this agriculture marketplace, this MasterCard Farmers Network brings the benefit and security of digital payments to smallholder farmers and agri-sector stakeholders. To the buyer side in the marketplace, it enables the buyer to create and manage produce orders to this farmers producers organization via a web-based application, as well as register users, review reports, and make payments directly to FPOs and also to farmers in case he is dealing with the farmer directly. And then through the platform to the seller side, which is the smallholder farmer, this marketplace enables these FPOs to aggregate smallholder farmer produce for sale via smartphones and through the web portal. And these FPOs can register farmers, record expected harvest, manage buyer orders, pay farmers digitally, access reports for whatever they have been doing, and also collectively, and also communicate with their farmers via SMS. And on that platform, we give up to 100,000 SMS monthly to these FPOs for their communication. So that's the benefit a farmer or these FPOs can get through these digital platforms. And then it also have an advantage on digital payments. And through this, it enables buyers to make payment to FPOs and enables FPOs to make payments to their farmers based on their preferences and timely. And of course, it promotes the transparency and accountability of whatever that takes place because it has record of everything. To the financial services, it facilitates consent tracking and access to farmers' digital transaction histories, which provides insight into a farmer's ability to repay the loans or whatever they borrowed from, either from an agri-input dealer or through these microcredit lenders. And then it also have access to third-party services, which enables these FPOs and farmers to access high value added services such as training, advisory, and financial services. So these are all benefits that come with digitalizing the agriculture marketplace. To the smallholder farmer, who will reap big because following these other benefits that we mentioned, whoever that participates perhaps through this channel will have access to extend and reach and crop visibility to new markets and buyers, in turn build relationship between smallholder farmer, FPOs, and buyers for future transactions. Where you might not now need the system, but of course the system will help you in relaying your rather in transparency, and also it is also important to have a system running within the FPOs and also on the buyer side. Credibility We ensure that it creates a digital transaction history, which provides opportunity for smallholder farmers to access credit, insurance, or savings to help finance day-to-day operations, deal with major weather events, or even disease outbreaks. So having this digitalized agriculture farmer pledge or marketplace gives you that benefit. Even transparency, I've been thinking about, it provides transparency, transparent pricing by directly connecting smallholder farmers association with an FPO or buyers, and that increases revenue for existing crops and the farmer livelihood. Looking at convenience, of course, it reduces the time and cost of travel to transact. Transactions are now completed directly on the MasterCard Farmer Network through the agent. Of course, we give devices to these agents to do all these transactions, at least for each and every FPO farmer producer organization. There are 2 devices given to aid their transactions and their day-to-day operations. And these farmers are paid digitally. So there is no worry of my money will be, swindled or was looted by thugs along the way. You just get your money either through a bank account or mobile money services, and it is done instant. Also, in terms of speed, these digitalized services are heavily a cash-reliant industry to facilitate payments for produce instantly. Even a payment for inputs, be it tractor services, be it pesticides, acaricides, or seed and seedlings, instant payment or transactions are done. So through this system, you're good to access all that at a go. This MasterCard Farmer Network benefits stakeholders at all levels. Of course, we say to the FPOs, it reduces on operation, it increases their operation efficiencies, streamlining manual process and automates order and collection management, access to it increases their accessibility. It promotes stronger relationship with farmers through price transparency, and it eliminates gender price discrimination and supports efficient communication via SMS between FPOs and our farmers. We talked about speed. It facilitates digital payment for produce upon collection, reducing cost, time, and effort required to make manual cash payment and access to the bank branches. Agri-buyers to an agri-buyer, of course, operation and efficiency still. It reduces sourcing costs and web and mobile capabilities, allowing buyers to order, collect, and communicate more efficient with these farmers, producers, organizations. Speed. It facilitates digital payments between buyer and FPO, reducing cost, time, and effort required to make manual payment and other payments. In terms of transparency, of course, there is traceability and insight into the quality of inputs and cultivation practices used by the smallholder farmer. To the government, of course, transparency, visibility of end-to-end value chain data that can be used to steer and measure policy, program efficacy, ability to track and measure the return on investment of donor funding. And then to international development organization, IDOs, of course, it gives transparency, visibility of end-to-end value chain data that can enable an IDO to measure and evaluate the impact of their investment. Farmer market linkages, of course, it enables these linkages of smallholder farmers to reliable markets due to aggregation of demand and supply. This MasterCard Farmers Network digitizes the agricultural value chain, payments, and workflow by enabling a digital rural ecosystem of agriculture supply chain participants. And this is how the workflow runs. It starts with buyers, the FPOs, and smallholder farmers. via the FPO, because at the moment that is how we are working through these farmers producers organizations. So these organizations are registered onto the MasterCard Farmer Network, and then the FPOs, agents, and farmers' expected yields are captured via the agent app, which is through the device that we give to these FPOs. And then buyers post orders on MasterCard Foundation Network to specific FPOs if they want, or to determine, or they begin their transaction, their business from there. That maybe, for example, James will tell them, I need this number of tonnage of soybeans, direct to a specific FPO, and the business begins. And then orders are relayed also to FPO via the web, and to farmers via the agent app. Or if a farmer who is having a smartphone, can just give, the farmer can download the app and access some of these services through that app. And then stage number 5, these FPOs with matching produce accepts the order. If they know they can meet the target, then they accept the order. Once they accept the order, FPO agent collects the produce from the farmers through the device. For example, Doreen, I have this number of tonnage. Francisco have this number of tonnage. Mr. Kevin have this number of tonnage, and that is how it goes. And then, of course, the buyer on the other hand keeps seeing that update as it flows. And then the buyer agent, the person the buyer has sent on the ground, collects orders from this FPO and makes payment to FPO there and then, and that is how it runs. And then these FPOs pay smallholder farmer digitally and instant. So there is no much delay, and you know, and it reduces on a wastage of time and everything. The MasterCard Farmer Network, we also have a cloud-based platform that works for both offline and online. So there is no worry that here that we don't have network. Wherever you are, you run your app and you just synchronize where you get network, and you're good to go. And that works through the FPO agent app. And the features includes farmer registration and management, order and collection of collection management, in-app reporting, store and forwarding capability, enabling offline operation. To the FPO and buyer web portals, runs on Chrome and Firefox. The features include marketplace management, user management, bulk and individual farmer registration, order and payment management, credit management, agent and farmer communication via SMS, and then reporting. On the server, on the MasterCard Foundation Network server, it has these features of central cloud-based server, host MasterCard Foundation Network portals, host Master Foundation MFN APIs for external integrations like payments, advisory, credit providers, etc. Surely, securely stores and encrypt all the data, integrates to MasterCard shared services. And then it also have a benefit of data analytics portal. Of course, from the dashboard, upon opening, you have reporting and analytical to monitor program performances by whatever transactions or activity that took place through the device. You're able to monitor instantly. And then responding in times of crisis, the context MasterCard Farmers Network, known as the IRITHU in Andhra Pradesh, has been operating under the guidance and support of the government of Andhra Pradesh Department of Horticulture since 2018. Some of the challenges, the effects of the COVID pandemic virtually brought the agriculture supply chain down and up to the standstill, and of course, gave a big challenge. Here for the smallholder farmer and for the greater good, MasterCard is a technology company unique in our ability to deliver solutions from digitizing manual records within the value chain to managing the complex ecosystem of stakeholders. And as an organization, the financial institution looks to for innovative solutions and products. We are also thoroughly committed to financial inclusion across the globe. we believe that by providing digital solutions to the most marginalized citizens in the world, we can profoundly impact the lives of millions of people while also improving service provider productivity and progressing global food security. So basically, that is all I could talk about the digital platform that we personally am training farmers upon in West Nile. Here in Uganda, we are being regulated by Bank of Uganda and working under YoPay, which have a component of YoPay Agric and offering those services to farmers. So for any other individual farmer or farmer producer organization, I said that can include cooperatives, farmers association, groups, companies, NGOs. Of course, you can contact me. We link up and see how we can progress. Thank you. For the interest of time, I wanted to be a bit chap like that. Thank you. Doreen, over to you.
Thank you, Frank, for the elaborate presentation about access to digital platform for farmers. And I've seen many chats here, their inputs, but mainly on the issue of presentations with them, and also
Doreen, maybe you put off your video, because once you put it on, you're breaking. But if it is not there, you're flowing. So maybe for interest of getting to hear what's going on. Thank you.
I was saying, thanks for the presentation, James and John. Given their inputs on the chats, I've seen so many of them, but however, most of them are just like John could share his presentations with them. And yes, thanks for the presentation. This is Morris Ogwao. There are so many chats here. I think John has gone through over them and he has given some of the replies. We are at the end of the webinar. I think I'll invite James for the last time to give us an elderly advice upon these presentations. And also members, I don't think whether I'll invite anybody to give in an input. Maybe 2 or 3 members can also thank the presenters for today's webinar, and we have to close it. Thank you so much. James, over to you. Hello, James, are you around?
Yes, I'm around. Sorry, I had network challenge. Kindly repeat.
Just in 3 minutes time, maybe you can say your last words to the participants as an elderly to all of us.
Thank you so much. My first appreciation goes to every member who participated. And in particular, I want to thank John and
Frank.
And Frank for the presentation. Actually, you could pick from all this. I know there are digital platforms which have existed within West Nile and has been in operation. Like we have the one of iGrow, I know Farm, the one being managed by Palm Corp, trying to provide this, but we have not had any feedback. We have not heard from them if that all the issue is being embraced. And I also know the one called the West Nile Market. All these are trying to provide in some support to our farmers.
Yeah, James,
I'm saying what remains certain in all this is that the level of usage is very low. I implore all of us to try to adopt all this, because when we adopt this, we realize that it will be easier for us to get first-hand information, interact with the produce buyers, the input, but also above all, when we adopt precision farming, I'm very sure that we can be able to reduce on our cost of operation in farming, but as well increase on our productivity level. And we'll be able to earn more at the end of it all. Because just imagine you are seated somewhere and you're able to know how your crops are doing in terms of growth, how the disease level is performing, how the level of moisture and precipitation is happening in the field. Generally, you can be in better position to make a decision which can support your farming than when you're going to wait and rely on the observation and the technical assistance from the technical person only. I think this is what for us to embrace as a region in a way of changing the narrative about our farming. That is all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, James, for that. I think participants at this juncture, I would like to say that members who need John's number, John, you'll have to share your number with them, and also maybe share the presentations that you've been through. We have really, what we are going to take home, our take home is what you shared about the ultimate guide to precision farming, the whole step of precision farming. I think members, we have to take that very serious, and the new season is beginning soon. We really need to put things into our farming, and we embrace that we are going to do it. And also, I'll invite two participants, only two of them, to maybe share 2 or words to us. And maybe as a participant, you can put up your hand. I will be able to see whether you want to talk or not, and be able to put up your. Or you can just unmute yourself and you begin talking. And if you see somebody has unmute himself or herself, maybe you can mute yourself back. Thank you. Oh, there's no one speaking. No any other presenters, please.
Sorry.
Yes, John.
We're here to take any questions, of course. I've, as you see, I've shared the presentation from Farmer 21, that guidebook with everybody that's asked for it. But of course, we can share with the whole group, the whole mailing list as such as well. So I see one or two have also asked to be included in the WhatsApp group, because there's I've created one on precision farming here in Uganda, so we can concentrate in there as well.
Yes, I think some of the members here, you want to add them on the WhatsApp group of the precision farming, and also not give all their numbers to you. Maybe the participants could and we sign out.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening. Ratib, you're most welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Doreen. This is Ratib from Koboko. First of all, I wanted to apologize for joining late. I was also committed for some duty, but I was able to squeeze time and attend this important program. I also want to thank you, Doreen, and your team for organizing such important engagement for us as young people and farmers of West Nile. I don't have much to say. What I just wanted to do was to appreciate you guys for the wonderful work you are doing for us and to our farmers. And I will just encourage you to continue doing this. Don't give up in doing this. Let's mobilize for more, because we need this message to reach to the last farmer, which is there in the village. These ideas that we are sharing here should not just remain with us. We must get a time and explain it to the other farmers that we know, and see how we can bring them on board, so that next time when we organize such engagement, they should be part of it. Because I believe from what I've attended today, I've known the importance of this engagement, and I know there are farmers who will benefit from these engagements. So we should spread the message more and ask more people to join next time when we have this engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ratib, for that elaborate comment. I think all the members, after John sharing his presentation, also sharing his presentation, we shall not sit on the presentations. However, as Ratib had said, these presentations should go to the last person in the villages, in ourselves, farmers, in our homes. We are also farmers. Let's change the mentality of being negative about farming. So all this presentation has spoken, and we are going to practice it. Maybe by next year, people will give testimony about what they have planted and what they have harvested and how they have benefited out of it. It has really helped me a lot. I've got a lot of things. I'm also one of the farmers. I think in the next season, I'll have to plant accordingly and harvest also accordingly, such that it will have an impact on the rest of the people. So let's not sit on this. We have to take it home to the grassroots, to the people down in the villages. We have to tell them what they're supposed to plant in this season. Season has taken us through, since Frank has also taken us through all this. So we really need to impress that. John, thank you so much. I'll not stop thanking you and all the participants of today. I really want to thank you so much, but I really want to apologize for having joined late because I had network problem, and also up to now it's a kind of breaking, but I will next time it will be the best. Thank you so much. Because we are closing, do you have anything to say? Hello, are you getting anything to say because we are closing?
Okay, thank you so much, Madam Moderator. I want to thank everyone that still tarrying up to now and coming to the close of this session. I want to thank you all for taking your time to be here. Of course, to those who are new on this platform, this is a platform organized by Greater Nebi Under 40 CEO Forum, which is organizing a symposium that will be this year. And we are still in touch with a presidential CEO forum as our partners to make this happen. So whenever you get called upon, you'll be called upon, kindly join in and we move together. It's all for the good of our people, good of our community, good for the West Nile. We see West Nile having great potentials in many sectors, but we've been hindered by lack of information and some infrastructures. Now that things are getting to the right direction, we don't need to sleep. We need to stand on our foot and do our part as we develop together. It is our time, and we are the very people to cause the change that we all yearn for. So it takes me and you to work hard and achieve that greater goal. I want to thank you for this and have a great evening and a blessed weekend. See you again next Friday on this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank, and bye to all the participants.
Bye, everybody.